Alright, what's going on, guys? Dorohedoro Volume 5, Chapter 24, La 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 Monster Man. Now, before I start the video, I just want to make an announcement. Thanks to Sebastian C., I found out that the Dorohedoro anime is only going to be 12 episodes long. Now, this could potentially be good and bad. Bad in the sense that, 12 episodes is going to go by really fast. We're probably only going to get maybe 30, 35 chapters of the manga. So considering that it's a manga that's 190 chapters, we're just going to kind of get a bit of a taste of it. So only 1/6 of the manga purportedly is going to be adapted. But that being said, this might actually be a blessing in disguise. Because if you've looked on my anime list, the studio that's heading up the production is MAPPA. Now, this is, they got kind of a spotty track record. If you watch the 2019 anime Dororo, the animation started off pretty competently enough. There were some pretty good scenes to begin the series, but towards the end, it just turned into complete dog shit. I mean, there were so many bad sequences. There was one scene that sticks out in my mind like a sore thumb, where Hakimaru was running through the forest, and it looked like some sort of Super Mario character. Like, he looked pixelated, his legs weren't even moving in a fluid manner. It was egregious and gross. I definitely would not want to see that happen to Dorohedoro. So I'm actually glad that it's only going to be 12 episodes. But with that said, let's get started recapping Volume 5. Now, Chapter 24 starts off with Kaiman. He's inside the magic user world. If you remember, he decided that he was going to leave the hole because he wanted to discover who he truly was. So he left behind Nikaido and everyone else in the hole, and he's venturing out into the magic user world by himself. Now, when he gets there, he starts monologuing a bit. He talks about how this isn't his real face, Kaiman's not his real name. He's really trying to figure out who he is. And he's going around town. He's trying to kind of ascertain some information as to the whereabouts of Ritsu. He steals a beer in the process. Pretty humorous moment. But he gets to a point where he has no food, he has no money, so he's got to figure out what to do. He decides he wants to look for a job. Now, in the process of this, Kaiman ends up fighting some guys who were attempting to kidnap this guy's staff from his restaurant. He beats him up, knocks him out, and unfortunately, as a result of this, he becomes more hungry due to expending all this energy. And he's like, oh, I'm so hungry. And the guy who he saves is also the owner of the restaurant. So he's like, come to my restaurant. I'll treat you to some food. So he makes him some food, Kaiman eats it. And this is an interesting encounter because right before he's eating the food, they're like, hey, why are you wearing your mask? Take it off and eat already. So he does it, and they look at his face. And, Kaiman's a little bit shocked and a little bit on edge here. He's like, oh, crap, they're probably going to figure out I'm from the hole. But they're like, oh, you must just be a magic user who got tested on. Because now the magic users aren't allowed to go to the hole at this point in time. So the suspicion is that magic users, to practice their magic, are using other weaker magic users. So Kaiman gets by. They think he's a magic user. All is good. And at the end of the chapter, he ends up working for this restaurant. He's a busboy. He's doing dishes. So he's got a job now. He can make some money, and he can finally get his food. And right before the chapter ends, there's talk of a upcoming night called Blue Night, and how the N family is getting prepared for that. So a bit of an enigma to end the chapter, but then we're on to the next one. Alright, so now we're on to chapter 25, Splendid and Exuberant. So in this chapter, Kaiman's learning the ropes of being a busboy. He's eating food that he's not supposed to, as always. But the critical part that starts this chapter is a blue beetle, and it signifies the momentous event known as Blue Night. So we see the blue little beetle inside the restaurant, and then we also see the blue beetle land on En's hand as he's having his breakfast. So there's something big that's about to happen in the magic user world, and we're on the edge of our seats. We're like, what the heck is going on? What's this Blue Night? And in preparation of the Blue Nights, we got a tailor that's inside the N mansion. He's going to make new suits for the entire N family. So everyone picks out their preferred suits. It's kind of funny because Ebisu just wants something with a lot of jewels. And then after that, Chota, he's got his finger on his mouth and he's like, yes, like an angel. En is right behind him, and he's like, why the fuck are you here? This is the second time that En has done this now to Chota. I feel like this is going to be a reoccurring joke throughout the manga series, where Chota just kind of randomly shows up, has these funny one-liners, and En's going to be like, what the fuck? What are you doing here, you bird freak? And then afterwards, the tailor is doing measurements on the women inside the house. Now she does the measurements for Ebisu, and she's flat as a washboard. She's got no boobs whatsoever. I think her chest was 62 centimeters, and then she does Noi, and Noi is 104, and you can just see her breasts just like massively just like overtaking the whole manga panel, and Ebisu looks shocked and kind of a little bit dismayed by this. Now, an interesting little facet about this chapter is that it looks like En is searching for a magician or a sorcerer who can manipulate time. One of En's henchmen brings it to his attention that there was a murder at a magic user shop, and it may have been the result of a time-manipulating sorcerer. Now, if you remember from not too long ago, Nikaido was in the magic user world with Kaiman, and she decided to go to a magic shop. She was going to sell her black smoke, but instead of doing so, she ended up killing the guy and destroying the smoke. Now, is this in reference to Nikaido? Is she the magic user that can manipulate time? That would be very fascinating. She has been an enigma up until this point, and we do know that she is a sorcerer. We do know that she does have magic, but she's choosing not to use it. Now, this is very important because En wants to make Nikaido, well, we don't know if it's Nikaido yet, but he wants to make the time-manipulating sorcerer his partner, because such a sorcerer would be very powerful and useful to him. Now, after this event, we see a lot of sorcerers outside of the En Mansion. They want to be part of the Blue Knight, and they want to try to make one of the En family members one of their partners. They're very highly sought after. They're very strong magic users, so to have one of them as a partner would be very advantageous. Afterwards, we go back inside the mansion. We see some preparations being made for the event. We see a crystal sugar statue of En. Just absolutely fantastic. And I think that's what En says too. I think he says fantastic. I can't wait to see how a lot of this is adapted in the anime. I feel like for the anime's sake, the voice actors and the pacing are going to be very critical. If they can nail those two components, this could be a very hilarious anime. But anyway, after that, just getting ready for the night ahead, and we pan over to En, and he's just talking about how he wants that time manipulating sorcerer to be his partner. And yeah, that's really about it for this chapter. Oh, they also do get their new suits as well. I gotta say, Noi is looking pretty voluptuous in this chapter. She kind of looks like a mix between like a WWE wrestler and a sex kitten. And yeah, everyone else in the En family's got their digs on as well. They're all kind of getting ready, and they all look good. Except for Shin, you know, everyone's got like new costumes except for Shin. He's basically got on the same getup that he always has on. But yeah, with that said, that pretty much wraps up this chapter. And now we're on to chapter 26, titled Blue Nightland. So the sorcerers that are at Kaiman's restaurant are deciding to go to the event. Kaiman has to stay behind. He has to do some dishes and some more work. But then he's contemplating the whole matter. He's like, oh, this Blue Night event. There's going to be a lot of sorcerers there. Perhaps Ritsu will be there. So he decides, hey, you know what? Let me go there. Let me see what this is all about. And he doesn't have a ticket to get in the event, but he's going to decide to kick some ass and get in there anyway. It's really comical when he gets there because he's in his like busboy outfit, and he's kind of reaching for his knives that are on his chest coat pocket, and he's like, oh, I forgot my knives. And you see him in full sprint, and he's like, well, anyway. And then he just kicks some ass. He knocks out these two guards, and then he gets in. And then we go back over to the En family. En's practicing for his speech, and then they bring in some guards, and the guards are handing out some papers, some applications basically for people who want to be partners of the various members of the En family. Now, Noi, Shin, even En's dog gets some papers, but Vegeta only gets 2, and unfortunately, Ebisu gets none. Shin because they didn't request anyone to be her partner. And she looks very shocked and dismayed by this. And to end this sort of panel, Shin tells Noi this might be the end for us. So maybe, possibly, they won't be magic user partners anymore after this whole event. And that would be very surprising because we know from a previous chapter that Noi harbors feelings for Shin, and that is the most important person to her. So it would be very interesting if they both got different partners, how they would handle that. Shin obviously doesn't seem to care one way or another, but I think Noi would take it very personally, and she might even be a little bit heartbroken. So we'll have to see how that plays out. Now we're back in the main hall, and En is providing the introduction speech to the Blue Knight event, and we see a cutaway to Kaiman, and he looks up at the stage, and he sees Noi and Shin, and he's like, oh my gosh, those were the two that attacked me back in the hole. So we're gonna have to see how Kaiman handles this, if he's gonna look for revenge and try to attack the two. So then we're back to En, who's announcing the rules to the magic user Blue Knight. He's talking about how you have to drag the magic user inside a house with two devils, and they make you sign a contract. And once you sign that contract, you are partners. But En gives everyone a warning. He lets them know that if anyone touches Kikuragi, the little pet that he has, he'll murder them personally. So after this moment, we then see Noi, and she's just kind of sitting there readjusting her high heel shoes, and she gets attacked by some magic, and it looks like an explosion happens, and she's in trouble from the get-go. Now, you're supposed to wait until midnight to start the Blue Knight event, but it looks like someone broke the rules here. We then transition back to the shop where Nikaido killed the store owner, and they're looking at the video footage of the magic user that might be able to manipulate time, and it does turn out to be Nikaido. So it looks like I might have been right in my hunch in the previous chapter. Maybe Nikaido is the magic user that can manipulate time. So this would be very fascinating if it is true. And the chapter ends very humorously, where we go back to Nikaido. She's in the shop, she's serving everyone food, including Johnson. Very shocking, I know. And then we have a little scene where Nikaido's like, I wonder what Kaiman's doing right now. He's unplugging a toilet and he's like, fuck! So great stuff. So now we're on to chapter 27, Flower Smoke. Now before we start the Blue Knights, we actually go back in time. It turns out the members of the En family are curious about Noi and Shin's past. So En decides to tell him a little bit of a story, and he mentions how Noi used to kind of work as a bouncer. She would look after the restaurant that En owned. Well, it just so happens that Shin went to the restaurant one day, he stole some food, and he left without paying. So Noi went to confront him about it, and Shin demanded that they have a magic fight to determine who would pay for the dinner. And Noi wanted to make sure that it was a fair fight, so she healed Shin's arms. Her magical ability is that she can heal body parts. So very interesting. Her ability is not so much offensive, but more so recuperative. But right after this, Shin decides to take his hammer and smacks Noi in the back of the head. Now, unfortunately for Shin, or fortunately, depends on how you look at it, Noi can use her regenerative powers on herself. So she gets up and she's just fine and dandy right after that. Then after that, En decides to ask Shin to join the family, to be one of the members. And then after he joins, we find out that Noi is actually in training to become a demon. She's feeding some bats as a part of her training, and then one of the last components of her training is that she cannot use her magic for 1 year afterwards. And it looks like the training is going well for Noi. She's got horns coming out of her head, she's growing a tail, so she's only 3 days away from becoming a demon. Unfortunately, some ruffians come to the restaurant, and they decide to throw down. And it's a magic battle against Sun. So they're fighting, and in the midst of the battle, Shin decides to protect Noi with his body. Now, his body is just in shambles after this attack. You can see his intestines and his organs falling off. It looks like one of his legs has fallen off too. And Noi, decides that saving Shin is more important than becoming a devil. So a very interesting little chapter here. We learn a lot about Shin and Noi's relationship here, and it's definitely obvious that Noi has some feelings for Shin. Now, I don't know if that's reciprocated or not. I mean, we see throughout the manga chapters, even when Shin is an adult, he seems to be relatively ambivalent around Noi. So whether or not he feels the same way still remains to be seen, but we definitely know how Noi feels. And I gotta say, the chapter ended in a very humorous way, where they were asking what happened to the restaurant, and Chota's like, oh, they went bankrupt after a series of deadly mushroom poisoning. Which is kind of humorous because that's, En's special ability. He can grow mushrooms, and it was a ramen shop that had like a special dish with mushrooms in it. So, humorous way to end the chapter, and then we're on to the next one. Now we're on to chapter 28, Awesome Meat Bag. So now Ritsu makes his appearance at the Blue Knight. He's going to the N Mansion, hoping that he can find his friend and get some more information about the Cross Eyes. We then move back to Kaiman. He's decided that he's done cleaning toilets and he's gonna get back to the action, and he encounters Shin. He sees him in a room and he's like, whoa, what's going on here? And what's going on here is a pretty epic battle once again. He's getting attacked by a guy with a sniper rifle and a bunch of syringes. And man, this guy looks quite powerful. And it seems like Shin knows this guy. I believe he calls him Yaku. So very fascinating battle. This is gonna be really cool when we see this animated. Now after the battle, Shin is down for the count, it would appear, and Kaiman gets found out by his boss that he was slacking off. He wasn't watching the restaurant, so he's getting scolded. But after getting scolded, Kaiman's like, look, I'm hungry. Can I have some money for some food? So he decides to get some food in this. And right as he gets his food and he's about to chow down, he gets hit and he drops his food. So after this, Kaiman's totally pissed off as all hell. And then the restaurant owner finds out that Kaiman has been assaulted, and he decides to help his staff members. So they decide to go into a brawl. Pretty epic stuff. There's some fighting and punching. Kaiman's got no weapons, so he goes to the restaurant shop owner and he's like, hey, give me some knives or something. And once again, Kaiman is cutting off people's feet and their arms. That's like his go-to move. Go for the hands and the feet. Like, he knows how to get you where it hurts. We then transition back to Ritsu. He's looking for some magic to sustain his body. If you remember, his mechanical body runs off of En's black powder. So once that runs out, he doesn't have a body anymore. So he decides to go to a shed where some black magic is, and he sees this little safe, and he's like, oh, what's this? Decides to open it, and out pops Noi. Noi that kind of looks like Two-Face from Batman. Her whole face is just a massacre at this point. And she wasn't able to heal herself because the box she was in was resistant to her magic. So she couldn't heal herself inside the box. But once Ritsu allowed her to escape from this, she was able to heal herself back to her full strength again. And again, a nice little visual of Noi. I gotta say, for a female author, Q Hayashida likes to draw a huge breast. I'm not complaining, it's just an interesting observation I made. Now, I'm not sure what happens here at the end of the chapter, but it looks like Risu's head fell off his mechanical body, and his body regenerated, because we see at one point, Noi's like, I wonder if Shin's alright, and we see the mechanical body without a head, and we see a man running off in the distance. Now, did Noi's sorcery heal Ritsu, and does he have a fully capable body once again? That's what it appeared to be to me. If I'm wrong, you guys can let me know in the comments. But then that's the end of chapter 28. We're then on to chapter 29, a macabre mushroom appears. So it does look like Ritsu has a new body at this point. I think my suspicions were confirmed correct after chapter 28. And then we see Ritsu get some new digs, but he's still questioning himself. He's still wondering who killed him and who is the Cross Eyes. Now he's walking down the street and he happens to walk right by Kaiman. They kind of look at each other in a very surprised manner. However, it's very brief as the restaurant owner tells Kaiman to hurry up, and that's the end of their encounter. So unfortunately, Kaiman very close to meeting his objective, meeting Ritsu. However, he wasn't able to accomplish it. We then go back to the N family. There's a lot of magic users that want N as their partner. However, he keeps turning them into mushrooms. No one seems to be even remotely close to his level of sorcery. And N is contemplating a lot of different things at this moment. He's wondering what happened to Ritsu, where the time manipulating sorcerer is, and what's going on with the lizard dude. So he's kind of like at a crossroad here. He doesn't really know what to do. Choda's like, hey, N, we're running out of time. Why don't we confirm it? Let's be partners. And then receives a picture of the magic user that was manipulating time, and he sees that it's the same girl that was after Ritsu and punched him in the face. So now he knows for sure who was the one who did this. And then N's like, you know what? She was in the room when my mushrooms started to explode and everyone was infected by them, as noted by the fact that she had a mushroom growing out of her back in a previous chapter. And N, with a very sadistic smile, grabs one of these dolls on top of a fireplace. He changes that doll into Nikaido, almost like a voodoo doll, if you will. But instead of sticking little pins and poking her, he decides to lay a mushroom inside of her. And this is a very fascinating little occurrence here, because just as this happens, Nikaido starts to have pain in her back again. Now, she kind of brushes it off at first. She's like, oh, okay, you know, it doesn't seem like it's anything. It was probably just some sort of weird backache or something. But then, all of a sudden, she's having the pain once again. There's some storm clouds. And then we see a bulge growing out of the backside of her shirt. And bong! There comes another mushroom. So, but this isn't like the mushroom from before. This mushroom's got arms, it's got legs, and it looks like it's ready to throw down. And that brings us to our last and final chapter of Volume 5, and that's Chapter 30, Welcome Mushroom-chan. So the battle with the giant mushroom and Nikaido and the gang is about to begin, and is watching on very weirdly. It looks like his face is turning into mushrooms. It looks like from the battle too that his face is superimposed on the giant mushroom man. So I believe he's sitting in a chair and he's manipulating the mushroom from the magic user world. But anyway, the battle begins, and boy, what a battle it is. I mean, this thing is a beast. Dr. Vox tries to take it on at first. He's just kind of whacking it with a 2x4. I don't know what he's thinking here, but he tries his best. He then gets sprayed in the face with some kind of black sludge, and it turns him into a mushroom. So Dr. Vox is out of the picture. Dr. Kasakabe's like, fuck, go get him, Johnson. So Johnson and the mushroom are battling each other. Now, I gotta say, when Q Hayashida was pitching this idea to her boss, you know, her boss must have been like, wait, say that one more time. You got a mushroom battling a giant cockroach? She's probably like, yeah, what's the problem? You know, well, okay, go with it. I don't care. Like, how do you think of this? I mean, like, was she like sitting at the dinner table one day and eating like a mushroom, a shiitake mushroom, and then she saw a cockroach walking across the kitchen floor and she's like, huh, that might be an interesting idea. I don't know, but very inventive nonetheless. And I gotta say, Johnson is doing a very good job against the mushroom. He's getting in some good shots. He pokes the mushroom's eye, but unfortunately the mushroom is fighting back. He gets the best of Johnson. He damages his leg. And then after this, they decide to get away from the mushroom upstairs. Now, when they're upstairs, Nikaido gets bandaged up. They're starting to recuperate a little bit, and Nikaido realizes that the only chance that they have to defeat the mushroom if she puts her sorcerer's mask on again. And it just so happens that the devil who gave her this mask also endowed it with a special ability where it regenerates her power. So she puts on the mask. She decides to have the climactic battle with the mushroom. She's kicking ass, and she basically rips the thing in two. We see its guts and its blood all over the floor. It looks like she's been successful in defeating the mushroom and they can relax again. But at the last moment, Nikaido and the gang go through a trap door, and we see N's mansion with a door coming out of the ceiling. So it turns out that N used the mushroom as a trap to encapsulate Nikaido and the gang into his mansion mansion. So now they're trapped in the mansion. En and Chota are ready to take him down, it would appear. And right before something happens, that's the end of chapter 30 and the end of volume 5. Now, my reactions to volume 5, this was probably my favorite volume so far. Very great. I loved every moment of this. Such great development in terms of Noi and Shin. We got a lot of comedic moments from Ebisu. I really haven't mentioned her much, but trust me, every time she's on a page, I'm always laughing my butt off. We got some comedic moments from Kaiman as well. And you know, I gotta say, you know what this series is starting to remind me of? It reminds me a lot of Hunter x Hunter. There's a lot of similarities in terms of like Hunter x Hunter, where everyone had their own unique Nen powers and abilities, and they could train it in different ways. So every battle was a different experience, different strategies, and I feel like that's how Dorohedoro is. Every sorcerer has a different type of magic, so each battle is going to be a little bit different from the last. Now, that being said, I feel like Q Hayashida, up until manga volume 5, hasn't really done enough with the magic so far. I would like to see more creativeness and a lot more battle strategy. I mean, so far it's just a lot of slicing and dicing and kicking and punching. Especially with Johnson and Kaiman, that's really all it's amounted to up until this point. Now, I gotta say, En's magic has been very inventive and nuanced, so I am enjoying that component, but I would like to see a little bit more ambitiousness in the next chapters with the magical powers and the battle strategy, rather than just kind of a slugfest. But I feel like that's an apt comparison. Hunter x Hunter and Dorohedoro both employ kind of the same sort of setup, you know, with different sort of magical powers. Nen in the case of Hunter x Hunter, sorcerer abilities in the case of Dorohedoro. Both are sort of lighthearted with comedic jokes. Obviously, Hunter x Hunter is more geared towards a adolescent to younger adult audience, where I feel like Dorohedoro is more young adult to middle-aged adults, but it's still very much in the same vein. So I feel like there's a lot of similarities there. And I enjoyed Hunter x Hunter immensely. So I'm really enjoying Dorohedoro thus far. I feel like, you know, in the beginning, I kind of wasn't really into it, but as each volume has passed by, I've been getting more and more engrossed with it. And, you know, I'm getting to the point where it's like, man, I can't help myself. I just want to read more and more. So this was a very good volume, the best one so far in my books. Hopefully they can sustain this momentum, and hopefully we get another good volume in volume 6. By the way, anime episode 1 coming out tomorrow. That means I'll probably slow down a bit with my manga reviews. I'll probably be doing mostly anime reviews of Dorohedoro going forward, but I will still try to post manga reviews every so often. It's just my time is going to be a little bit limited with the new anime this season. But with that said, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll catch you on the flip side.